I never really understood the phrase "women can't live with them, can't live without them." I didn't get that until I was about 28 years old. I was like, what the hell does that mean? You know?
I mean, I don't know. Talking to the wrong guy as far as that goes.
We could get you one of those AI girlfriends, total robot.
It's a TV show. There's a TV show where they did something along those lines. It's just like, I don't know. The one that I've seen a whole bunch is, I'm not sure what country, but it is overseas. But I know that Japan has some of it, of like the waifu pillows and like weird cohabitation things with inanimate objects. And people have married inanimate objects and like,
Anime character pillow.
yeah, I'm good being single. I don't need that mess either. Like, I don't want to be the like, hey,
She's gonna give you too much grief.
hey kids,
pillow.
let's go play with literally anyone else. Like, I don't want my my nieces and nephews being like, why is Uncle JD so weird? Mm-hmm. Like, nah, no, thank you.
I don't understand that. It's like you just care about a pillow.
I can't speak to it. I really can't. It's just, it's a different thing.
I was also told in Japan you are allowed to rent old people.
You can rent old people.
Yep.
Why would I rent
Just
an
rent
old
them to
person?
hang out with them, hear their life story, whatever.
You can.
Nothing sexual here, I swear to God. It's literally just to rent old people to let them have something to do.
But why would you have to pay for it? Wouldn't they pay for it? Or is it because you want the?
Yeah.
The culture difference,
Yeah.
probably, because elders are respected so highly.
That was something I learned real quick. The culture difference stuff. When my mom got married, so my stepdad's Japanese, and in Japanese culture, there's very strict guidelines as to how you treat your parents. You can't tell them, "Hold on." You can't tell them, "I'll be there in a second." You can't do anything that's even slightly in their world disrespectful, or you will literally get just blasted. I was watching, I think it was like a American Idol or something when we first moved in after they got married, and I was like, hold on a second, because it was dinner time. I was like, dinner time, and I was like, hold on a second, I want to see the end of this. I want to see who wins. And my stepdad came out with a pitcher of water and dumped it on my head. And I was like, well, now it's going to be a lot longer than that. I got to get changed. He's like, no, you're going to sit in that water. Go sit down at the table. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah, culture difference is wild. I had the privilege of like going to Costa Rica my senior year, and when you talk about culture stuff, it's wild how different basically anywhere is from the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of things that we've moved away from. That some of it I definitely am like, I'm glad we've moved away from that. That's a little extreme, but then there's a bunch of stuff that just seems like we lost the plot.
Mm-hmm.
It just...
Yeah, all history is lost to America. When America started, we just changed everything.
Yeah, I mean...
Well, I can speak to that too. We had a foreign exchange student from Pakistan when I was in high school, and he sat at our table. And he became one of our friend group while he was there for, I think, 4 months or something like that. But one time, my friend Chad picked up a piece of bread and threw it at one of the other kids across the table. I don't remember who he threw it at, and he flipped out. He got up, threw the table over, and just cussed at everybody in Pakistani or whatever the language is, and left. And we're like, what the fuck just happened? And turns out, they take it very seriously. The act of breaking bread together is much more. I don't know what the terminology would be, but it's like much more,
It's more reverent.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, it's like you break bread together, you cherish the food, you engage with each other. It's an act of love between people. If you're spending your time nourishing your body with somebody else, and it was like a slap to the face that he threw bread at the other kid. And I was like, holy crap! I was like, I wonder how many times I'll get my ass whooped in Pakistan for the way that I behave regularly. you know. Welcome back to another episode of Into the Lion's Den with your co-hosts, Diesel. He's tired of me giving him nicknames, so he's going to be Diesel today. This is J.D. Stevens and Christian Griffith, brought to you proudly by Pride Roofing and Construction.
You can do this thing. It's ridiculous, but you love it for some reason, so
Hey,
here we
man,
are.
We got to have some fun with this thing.
I
So-
mean, we're having all kinds of fun.
All right, so today we are continuing on our path. We're going to be exploring more segments of entrepreneurialism, and this is, what's the title of today?
So today we are covering specifically, this is going to be the growth and development. So it's scaling up strategies for like business growth, those type of things. So the big things that we're going to cover is some of like the first customers, scaling the business, the marketing and the branding, the steps of building a team, and the milestones and achievements within that. So that's kind of like the rough as we work through things. The big thing the first thing that we're going to cover is going to be the first customers. So how we attracted our first customers, or what we did to generate those first set of customers coming into our doors. And then also the role that networking, referrals, and early marketing efforts played into that.
It's okay, big boy. Anyways, okay, I can feel that. So, are we switching people, or are you sticking with me today?
It's kind of a fluid thing. So there's going to be some moments with me, and then we're going to bring the producer back in, and he's going to sit down with you. He has a lot to add to this conversation, where some of my background doesn't necessarily add the bringing in first customers and that, and his does. So
Okay.
we felt that he was a nice tag in.
All right,
So
Lachlan's pretty face is
WWE.
coming in. Yeah, and getting tag teamed over here. Yeah. I need a chair and a table and a top rope. You guys are screwed. Yeah.
and a steel chair from the top rope.
Yeah. All right. So where do you want me to start?
So we're going to start with first customers. So how did we attract our first customers that helped build like the initial traction? I know that you've kind of told the story of the winter of 2019 and how you really attacked that winter and built the brand going into what is historically one of the hardest times for businesses across the world.
Yeah. Okay. So the first customers. So I mentioned on the last episode that the main, trigger point it was time to start the business, because our intention was always to start our own brand, but it wasn't. We wanted to be a little bit more financially able to do that. When we started finding out how much it was going to cost and how nobody wanted to give us any money, so on and so forth, we couldn't find partners, investors, whatever you want to call it. It was going to take some time, so we were just going to wait it out for a little while. We kept working for the last roofing company that we were with until we hit a point where they, for lack of better ways of saying it, they dicked us over on pay. Right, so the shiesty things that were going on in the background that we didn't know a lot about sort of came to light, and then those things started happening to us. Right, they were hiding pay from us or promising things that would not happen. So we'd sell something and then we'd get no value out of it. So we'd be losing our time and that kind of stuff. So long story short, the trigger point I was actively engaged with the community of Wellington because there was a big storm in 2018, and I was working actively out there. I had loved working there so much that I ended up moving there because it reminded me a lot of my hometown. So I moved from Denver into, grew up in Eaton, but I traveled around a little bit, went to school out of town and whatever. And I was in Denver when I was working for the gym company, and then when I switched over to construction, I still stayed there. But anyways, I moved into Wellington, and so I had met an incredibly large amount of people in the time that I spent prospecting and finding clients. And instead of doing what, unfortunately, some of the people who've, let's say they've branched out and done their own thing that I've trained and developed here at Pride, I took it in a honest approach, and I went to all the not the accounts because they weren't accounts yet, but there were people that I was working with, and I said, hey, I know we've been working for a little while together. I know that I've been wearing this brand, and I know that you have intentions of working with me when the time is right. So I wanted to let you know that my path is changing, and I am now opening my own business, and I would love to work with you still. And if not, I'll give you the contact information for my superior over there, and they can continue where I've left off. And, they thought about it for a little while, and it didn't take a lot of convincing because I used terminology like, hey, did you buy this brand? I'll just call it X. I don't want to name names on here, but did you buy this brand or did you buy into me? Mm-hmm. And every single time, actually it was 42 different clients that I was actively engaged with. Every one of them said, no, I don't know them. I know you. And, from the way that you present yourself and the way that you're honest and the way that you're always, involved with everything and you're always assisting us, I would love nothing more than help you with this new venture. And they transitioned a bunch of them. I had this theory in my head when I first started in the industry. There's a lot of, this is really industry specific, so I'm going to go on the trail off on a rabbit hole for a second. But there's a lot of people in our industry who, let's just say they don't have a lot of perseverance, maybe we'll call it that. They'll go in, and when there's low-hanging fruit, storms just fell, they'll go and they'll clean up as much as the easy stuff as possible, and then they will leave town because the other clients take time and attention and perseverance and just somebody who's actually there for the long haul, right? And so most people in this industry, they're just not into that. They call it stormed out. They're like, I don't want to work with those guys. I worked with ones that were easy to say yes, and I'm going to move on. I'm going to go to a different state. I'm going to a different city, so on and so forth. So I had a theory that if I stayed actively engaged and I always networked well, and if I always presented myself the exact same way, that definition of integrity, being the same person behind closed doors as you are in front of closed doors. If I maintain this, I would never have to chase a storm. I would never have to go anywhere else, and I could always stay close to home, in northern Colorado or southern Wyoming, because there's Wellington. I mean, it's basically the last town before you hit Wyoming. So, anyways, I had a theory that I'd never have to go and chase a storm if I just stayed actively engaged with the community, and that's what I did. So I presented it to people that I was already communicating with. All of them said yes to me, and then I continued my path. And even in the dead of winter, I remember I had a client who he told me to follow up with him after Christmas. And so on December 26th, in the middle of a snowstorm, I knocked on his door and I said, it's after Christmas. He said, follow up after Christmas. I'm here. You want to start talking about this thing now? And so I just continued to do the exact same thing that I always did. Surgically found the accounts that I needed to find. I knew where the storm damage was. I knew who had done their work, who hadn't. I had meticulously written down every address in the entire city, and I had worked through my rotation of door knocking and canvassing, and I knew what I still had left to work off of, and it was plenty to start the business. Yeah.
Awesome. And that was, I know that we've talked about, we use that in the sales training and things that we do here, and we talked about how integral that those initial 42 people were, and how much driving through that winter, because we work all year. A lot of, specifically in our industry and where we're located, a lot of people don't necessarily shut down, but they're not as active. Or they do shut down and go somewhere else for the winter.
Yeah, shut down and they do a winter job.
And We don't. We work all year. We work all year round, which kind of speaks to that what we've been talking about of building those initial clients, and like we don't disappear. There's no point where you can't get a hold of us for 2 months or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're always here. Or we have a building. Come in and talk to us.
Yeah.
And
For some reason, my phone's not working and I'm not answering. Walk through the doors and you'll find me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of that, those initial people and building that initial traction, I know that there was another real big one that is a fun story that we talk about. Of we nicknamed this whole neighborhood the last name of this particular client.
Yeah.
So that speaks directly into the networking, referrals, and the early marketing efforts.
Yeah, when we and so I'll talk about the neighborhood. You know, and they won't know we're talking about them. We called it Vashti Hood. It was the last name of the person that got us into this neighborhood. But that was a good testament to just consistency and perseverance. But our initial clients, we had to stick to one type of client. Now, as we've grown, it's been a goal of mine to change the organization to not be a full-fledged restoration business where we depend on storms and where we depend on, insurance to essentially fund everything that we're doing, right? But when you don't have any money and you can't pay for leads, it's you have to work with what you got. And so we had to work residential storm restoration. So that was our first market. Was we had to tap in and we had to get our basis and our foundational cash flow or whatever off of the easiest of the sales to find. And then we had to grow and evolve and bring in repair technicians and so on and so forth to build and evolve into the point where now we do both commercial and residential construction. We don't just do roofing. We do everything on the exterior of the home. We're fully diversified. And there's not a roofing system that we don't have the capacity to build. But when we first started, we were slinging asphalt shingles because you got hit by hailstones. That was all that we could build off of, right? And so but yeah, when we talk the Vashti Hood that we were talking about, I had she wasn't actually our very first client. She was the second client there. The very first client was a friend of mine from high school, and he found out that I had just gotten into the industry, and he actually got pressured by a storm chase company to sign a contingency, and he didn't call me out there to inspect because he felt like he was obligated to work with them because they made him sign his name on this form. And luckily, I helped him kind of dodge some bullets with this organization because they were not a local company, and they were definitely not somebody who would be willing or even able to service a warranty if they did something wrong. And also, frankly, I don't know if they would have ever used his money for what it was supposed to be for. I think they might have just tailed off into the sunset with it. And so I helped him get out of that agreement. He introduced me to the Mrs. Vashti and essentially we, as a team, were able to meticulously work through a neighborhood, which is a very small neighborhood, but we ended up re-roofing probably 80% of the houses in this neighborhood, which 80% of the houses, when I say a small neighborhood, we're talking still 400 houses. 80% of 400 houses is a lot of work to do. And so it's just, you stick to the script. And I said it from the beginning. I did not ever want to travel to go anywhere else. I wanted to stay local. I wanted to be known here. I wanted to be your next door neighbor, the guy that you always have in your back pocket. And everybody has a guy. I was like, my mission is to become the guy.
Okay.
Right.
So then you get that initial traction with those first set of customers we bring in. Then we start the scaling part. So what strategies did we use initially to scale the business? Whether that was different neighborhoods. I know that, like you said, the big thing is we had to go where the hail was.
Mm-hmm.
And what challenges did we have there? I know that year was, we were dealing with what was going on with COVID, so that made things hard.
Mm-hmm.
The county that we're in had really, really stringent guidelines and things that we had to do. We actually had to shut the office down for a time period during that, right when we were building the company. And then, so we dealt with some of that type of stuff, but then we also really struggled that summer because not a whole lot happened in Colorado, which led us to expanding into that new market of working with the folks in Cheyenne. And different challenges we face there.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's kind of, I haven't really thought about this in a while because it's been so far in the rearview mirror, but it's actually really something that we're still standing. The time that we started the organization happened to be the tail end of the last really damaging storm that had happened in Colorado, when previous to that, the last 20 years, there was all kinds of catastrophic events and things where they needed people to rebuild, right? We started at the tail end of the last one, and basically built the business during a 4-year drought. So, it's just consistency. That's the only thing I can say that really survived there, sticking to the model. But as far as scaling goes, there's a lot of adaptability that you have to have. You have to be very flexible. If you're too rigid with your thought processes, you're not going to be able to see an obstacle and find a way around it, through it, or over it. And so, moving into different markets requires different things. We went into Cheyenne, and we found out very quickly that Cheyenne is an entirely different cat than Colorado market is. I love the people, very good people. They're very, it's a very large, small town is the best way that you can describe Cheyenne. And the people up there are kind, they're courteous, but they protect their own so much so that it's very difficult to become one of their own. Right. And so we had to essentially get on the right side of the main roofing competitor up there and have him vouch for us that we're okay to be his competition in that area, and work through the board of directors to actually get our licensing there, which was really cool that he was willing to vouch for us. And then on top of that, there was if you're a greenie, right, you have a green license plate like you do in Colorado, and you show up to somebody's house, although they're kind and courteous, you're going to get a swinging door the wrong direction. It's going to be slamming shut, not flying open, right? And so we ended up having to really, dial that in by hiring local team members, becoming part of the Chamber of Commerce, buying another location where we can actually run a whole unit up there with a standalone facility that's not the one in Colorado. It's fully, Cheyenne people inside of Cheyenne building with a Cheyenne license, with, so on and so forth. So that was pretty difficult. But in terms of when I think of scaling, I'm thinking about how you make something to be replicatable. If that's the right, I don't know if that's the right term, if that's an adjective you can use, or even if it's an adjective altogether. But grammar eludes me. But anyways, we have had to beta test an incredible amount of different processes to learn how to make something that can be picked up. Scaling, if you break it down as most simplistic wording, is essentially writing a playbook where if you worked out of this location, but you went to another location in a different zip code, different state, different whatever, it's built the exact same way. The processes are the exact same way. Everything is start to finish, even down to as simple as the pens are in this desk drawer. That desk is located in the same place in the next facility. The pens are still there. You walk in and you can run exactly as fluently as you did in the other location. And so finding scaling methods without true guidance from anybody helping us and coaching us was more just beta testing. We had to test protocol, find out whether it was efficient or not efficient. And then if it was, we stuck with it and we fine-tuned it. If it wasn't, we got rid of it and tried something different. And, I've used the term bootstrapping 100 different times, but that's what we had to do, not just to find our clients, but how to deliver our processes the way that we have is try something. If it doesn't work, retract, start over.
And we're still very much in the middle of that. There's things that I think that a lot of people don't talk about. Of sometimes you don't have to close the doors, but you still hit a hard reset.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I think due to the nature of what we do, we've had a few of those where we've just had things that have happened that have caused the the core is here. And I think we have a really incredible core.
Mm-hmm.
But we keep running into that. Like, we're not closing, we're not shuttering anything, but we can't pick this up and put it somewhere else yet.
Mm-hmm.
Because we want to be able to run this office the way that you specifically see, and then that you have pushed down to us for the vision. So scaling that is still very much an ongoing process of like, this one doesn't run to the level we want it to yet to be able to copy and paste it somewhere else.
It's like bamboo, right? I think that's a good analogy, right? You know, you plant the seeds, and you have to water for what seems like ages before it really starts to sprout. And we're still building our root system, but when bamboo actually sprouts, it grows at an exponential pace, and the root system is so strong that no wind is going to blow it over, and it's so durable that it's not going to break as it expands, right? That's the methodology here. Is everything that we're doing, you know, we've advanced much farther than we were, you know, almost 6 years ago, but we are still very much finding any vulnerabilities in our foundation and redesigning them all the time. I want to build a foundation that is so strong and so wide that we could build a skyscraper on top of it that's incapable of being blown over even by the heaviest of storms, right?
Absolutely. So as we're continuing this conversation, we want to bring in a secondary perspective. So we have the privilege of working with Lachlan, and he owns LVL Creative Studios. He's our producer here. So I'm going to tag him in now to cover some of the same things that we've covered, but from a different business entirely. And he's going to talk about some of the things that we've already talked about, but his challenges that he faced inside of those. And so I'm going to tag Lachlan in.
Wait, on 3, snap both hands. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, so I am here. Hi, I'm Lachlan with Level Creative Studios. I have been doing my business 12 years now. Wild, crazy. It's been quite a journey, honestly, doing it as long as I have. You know, again, starting from the beginning, it was a fun little process. My first client was in high school. Nice. It was I went to a networking event, and somebody said they needed a logo, and I was like, oh, cool, I can do that. We got my team that was in business class together. We were all in business class, and we're like, oh, we have to do a project. And we actually started a business.
Yeah.
You know, they were just like, oh, yeah, we'll just like sell like, you know, lunches to the kids at school, and that's what the business will be. I'm like, that's not exciting. Let's go impact the local community. Mm-hmm. I was a weird kid. Mm-hmm. You know, no one liked that.
Yes.
Yeah. So they were like, okay, that's weird, but like, good for him. I guess he's gonna go make actual money. Went and got my first logo client for $300. Mm-hmm. Designed a logo for $300.
I bet you were psyched.
I was so excited. Unfortunately, that's not even close to a rate that I would design a logo for now. But that's beside the point. You know, it was still that process of I had to go outside of my generalized network of high school. You know, not the stupid kids that were just playing football and, you know, fucking around in the high school hallways and just being like, oh, yeah, look, I'm stupid. Whatever. I was over here having to go to networking events at 8 a.m. I don't do that anymore. But alas, at 8 a.m., go to these networking events, drink some coffee with people I didn't even know at 16. And I was just like, what is going on? This is weird. And that was a whole growth process, though. You know, it was very new to me. And it was, I think, just an interesting way of seeing how a business can grow, you know, truly grassroots in that way. Like, I just was so impassionate about creating beautiful things for my clients, making their logos, making their marketing look fantastic. So that first company I started was a brand marketing company directly, you know, very focused on that. And now, you know, I do very different things now in regard to like, you know, video and everything like that. That's been a whole new addition to the whole thing. But hey, you know, that was a nice little thing. So,
Yeah.
hey, you know, that's kind of the growth process I've had with some of that.
Well, that's a cool story. I mean, you're doing something you're passionate about, and you've been doing it for a long time, which is why everything you put together